Good afternoon. I'm Diana Wren Rapp, Assistant Director of the Atlanta Global Studies Center at Georgia State University. On behalf of the Atlanta Global Studies Center and GSU's College of Education and Human Development, I'd like to welcome you to Bringing the World to Atlanta's K12 classrooms. In today's session, our wonderful speakers will show you how to connect your students to peers in another country and build global competence, communication skills, digital literacy, and teamwork through virtual exchange. They'll also share classroom activities and project ideas. This event is a part of GSU's International Education Week. Today, I'm delighted to introduce you to two experts in education and virtual exchange, Dr. Yali Zhao and Dr. Tolosa-Casadont. Dr. Yali Zhao is an associate professor in the Department of Early Childhood and Elementary Education. She graduated from the University of Georgia in 2004 with a doctorate in social science education and an interdisciplinary qualitative studies graduate certificate. Previously, she was associate professor at University of Science and Technology in Beijing, China. She has published widely in reputed academic journals such as The Social Studies, Social Education, the International Journal of Social Education, Journal of Technology and Teacher Education, International Education Journal, Social Studies in the Young Learners, Asia Pacific Cyber Education Journal, and more. Dr. Zhao co-edited and published a book entitled Seeking the Common Dreams Between the Worlds, Stories of Chinese Immigrant Faculty in North American Higher Education. She's actively involved in cross-cultural and international education, teaching, research, and service. She's been leading the China Study Abroad program and educational exchange program with Chinese universities in the department and the college for the past 16 years, and has served as a mentor for Georgia State's faculty learning community on international virtual exchange for the past 2 years. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Zhao. Dr. Tolosa-Casadont is a clinical associate professor in the Department of Language and Literacy Education in the Mary Frances Early College of Education at the University of Georgia. She graduated from the University of Georgia in 2011 with a doctorate in teaching additional languages. Previously, she had taught Spanish and French at the P through 16 levels in Minnesota and Georgia. Dr. Tolosa-Casadont has presented widely in local, state, regional, national, and international conferences. Dr. Tolosa-Casadont is the post-secondary member-at-large for FLAG, the newsletter editor for Georgia TESOL, and was recently selected as the actful vice chair of the Teacher Development Special Interest Group. Dr. Tolosa-Casadont is actively involved in pre-service and in-service teacher preparation and development and conducts professional development workshops around the country. She started the first and only Spanish-English dual language immersion program in Athens, Georgia, which is now in its 6th year. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Tolosa-Casadont. And before I turn it over to our esteemed speakers to make their presentation, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, this session is being recorded. We ask that you keep your mics muted to reduce any noise during the presentation. There will be about 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A after the presentations. Feel free to type your questions in the chat at any time. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Zhao.
Sure, you have heard, maybe some of you, right, have heard a lot about virtual exchange already. So we would like to share some basics and even some definitions, right? So can you show them all? So we know, especially during the pandemic, right? And we have all experienced some online teaching already, the virtual technology and all sounds very familiar to us now. So basically, so it's a kind of technology that is a kind of tool to enable us some dialogues and collaboration between people and classrooms sustained over a period of time with the different countries, right? And definitely a lot of research and also a lot of teachers have proved that it is a very meaningful transnational and intercultural experiences. And also it's a kind of very flexible media of instruction. So you can implement in any subject. It has many you can do many types of activities, whether it's synchronized or asynchronized. So you can use a lot of platform and application software or some media platform to do a lot of activities you may not do before, but definitely now you have more choices, more options, and more ways of doing that. The next slide, some definition about the virtual exchange. So it is definitely, there are a lot of terms to describe virtual exchange. If you look at the right side, some commonly used names include the COIL, the collaborative online international learning, or tele-collaboration, or global teams, or online intercultural exchange, or some people even use tandem and tele-tandem, just kind of different kind of terminologies to show that you can engage collaboration between people from different countries, from different cultures. And it is definitely a very meaningful, interactive social learning process for people at home and also abroad. So move to the next slide. And also, I'm sure we have done something like distance learning. We know some terms already. So virtual exchange is not just a technology platform or software. It is not a teleconference or just distance learning or just a kind of way of virtual mobility. That means students use online platforms to take courses at a distant place, and also, of course, it's not a social media groups. So it's different from that. So just as the previous slide mentioned, it's a meaningful, interactive, reciprocal kind of learning, right? By using the technology. So it has a lot of benefits. By looking at this, a few boxes here, you can see it really kind of helps students for global and online working environments, right? It provides a great environment for students to collaborate globally. And also it promotes, as we are emphasizing a lot about how we can internationalize our curriculum, it really kind of promotes internationalization and also equity and inclusion. So more students actually can afford, because it's cost effective, time effective, so it can promote equity and inclusion. So all the students can participate, different from the study abroad programs we had before. So you have a lot of restrictions and limitations. And the virtual exchange, of course, can also encourage students to appreciate more for the diverse perspectives through dialogues, through meaningful conversations about many topics. And also it is very interactive. So it's students can learn from each other by doing discussions, by sharing information, and definitely it helps promote the 21st century skills and many content students need to master in order to be better prepared for their future career. So as I mentioned earlier on, so it can be applied in any subject, such as language arts, social studies, STEMs, math, I mean, just kind of a lot of new subjects, right, for the different courses. The next one. And also as teachers, of course, why we should use it. There are a lot of benefits for us, right? So it's very economic for us. It is an economic way for us to bring the content. We can also bring not only the content, but also experts and various perspectives and experiences of different people. And also teachers can also build some networks for international purposes to expand our visions and also to help promote our own global awareness and global knowledge. And also it helps promote a lot of professional development opportunities for us and also for people maybe farther away or in different part of the world with different cultures. So if you look at the few circles there, you can see more specifically how teachers can benefit from doing the virtual exchange. The next one. And for students, right, kind of summarize a little bit more. So it can offer students a very meaningful and exciting way to connect with peers in a different part of the world. And also students would have the opportunities for making international friends, and also make a lot of meaningful dialogues. And maybe in the future, right, once schools are open, when we get over the pandemic, right, students will be able to meet the students they collaborated, communicated in person. That's very likely, right? And also benefits for the students. Students will also have the opportunities for meaningful exchange in a new language, right? It's really kind of a lot of learning in many aspects. And students will have new experiences that will stimulate any kind of questions they have, and also appreciate the different culture. Of course, I more appreciate the different culture and also understand each other more. Okay, so there are a lot of models. So in the past years, and also I can see in the past 10 years, personally, I have implemented many virtual exchange activities in my own classrooms, and I tried different models. So here are some pictures here, right? So we collaborated with different universities in other countries, right? As one of the pictures here. So you can see the faculty and teachers. We are communicating, we are doing the planning, we are talking, we're sharing about our experiences. And next one is in my class. So we have been collaborating with the different universities. Our students have a lot of dialogues and project collaborations. So just come to the left here, you can see there are different models, right? The course can be embedded. So you can have educators, 2 or more educators from the different countries, and then add intercultural virtual dimensions to your course, make it fun, make it meaningful. And you can try the different disciplines. I have tried different courses, the different subjects. And also we can share learning outcomes with a lot of activities to promote interactions. And so there are different ways you can collaborate, right? Some examples include collaborate learning, and student can do the service learning project, and also online discussions, and also can collaborate some projects-based learning. Next one, please. And also definitely you can build a stronger relationship with your partners by doing activities, right? Between the faculties, between the educators, and also among the students. So it's very important to align the activities with the learning objectives so it can be more effective, more meaningful, and also develop intercultural communication and cross-cultural skills intentionally, not just random, always have a purpose in mind, and then design activities meaningfully, intentionally, and always include reflection and contextualize and apply what is learned in your classroom, and also encourage students to apply something meaningful. And of course, right, you want to assess how well the students achieve and how what they have learned. So you can use also different kind of authentic, formative, and summative assessments, and make sure your design sustained, and also try to make it structured and moderated. So as faculty, right, try to serve as a facilitator so the student can benefit as much as they can. Next one, please. So these are some commonly used modes of tools for virtual exchange. I have tried a lot of them, and also I know a lot of teachers also have been using this, right? Of course, you can add more. So I used iCollege, And Zoom is very common, right? Just as we are doing now. And also Agile Blocks, WhatsApp, Skype, and WeChat, WebEx, Edmodo, and Infogram. Discord, very popular for students, and Flipgrid if you're doing a lot of video sharing and discussion, and Moodle and VoiceThread, Facebook, Google Hangouts, GroupMe, and YouTube, right? Even, right? So of course you can add more. So I tried a lot of them, and our students, actually they are the tech generation, they always find more modes of learning and to communicate with the international learners. I have some guidelines, and I'm sure you also have some questions later on. So basically, always when you do the virtual exchange activities, always set clear expectations and specific instruction for your students, right? And always clarify my role as a facilitator and also students' role. And try to, as faculty, right, try to provide timely feedback and try to track student participation. And also try to create a thought-provoking questions and activities so students, they really care about and they are willing to spend more time and energy and thoughts on it. And also the different activities and discussions, try to make it fun and try to limit the number of questions and activities so the students will not feel overwhelmed. And also try to give student opportunity also to have some discussion and student-centered activities. And also, so I think when you have a large group of students, right, it will be more efficient when you have group discussions and also select maybe activity leaders so they can be more motivated and more be responsible in their activities. And also, of course, set deadlines for posting and discussion or the different activities, right? So considering the time difference oftentimes, but still, you can be flexible, but still set some goals and some deadlines, some criteria, some rules still, so to make it more effective. And also, always, of course, pre-check your technology and sound and make sure the interactions will be consistent and also will be effective to help all the students to learn. Okay, the next slide. Yes, these are some my examples. I use the different, as I mentioned, I use the different topics, the different tools, as you can see here. I have done the case studies and different kind of topic discussions using the different platforms. And also I even have students create some books using the different websites we now can access online. Okay, the next one. So this is just some screenshots from my projects. So the students talking about, in different countries, they're talking about the contemporary issues in American education, in Chinese education, in South Korean education. And also students read some children's books and they compare about the education issues, the cultures represented in the different books, and they share and they talk and they compare. So this is using the Flipgrid. So this is one example, right? How the students reading a serious book. It's called I See the Sun in the different countries. And they all read it and then they review it and they comment and they share about the differences and similarities about education and culture in those different countries. And the next one. So this is again on Flipgrid. So this is a kind of more detailed information, the video sharing, and also discussion about these books and how they learn about it and how they can apply in the classroom. So there are a lot of dialogues. So each one has to watch all the videos in the specific groups and then respond to each other. The next one. So this is another kind of what I'm doing using the Wechat. So it's the most commonly used platform in China. So this is about, so we have the weekly discussions and also a lot of questions. Students are sharing, respond to the different discussion questions. And they, sometimes we have the English, sometimes we have the Chinese, and they use the translator. So if you look at the next one, the next, yes, you can see. So I created a lot of platforms and activities, right? We are constantly sharing our classroom activities from both sides. So it's kind of, we have the time difference, but students constantly are reacting and sharing information from various projects. And students have a lot of dialogues. So as you can see on the right side, it's in our GSU classrooms. In the left side, it's the Chinese classrooms. Next one, please. And this is a great website. I would strongly encourage teachers to use it. I tried also in my Culture Foundation class. So students can actually create books, right, using some websites. We already have availability. So that is international collaborative writing. So this is a kind of screenshot from the website. If you move to the next one, I can share the examples here. Using the three websites I kind of previously shared, our students, right? So in the website, there are a lot of pictures. So students, if they are good at drawing pictures, they would collaborate. If not, they can also choose from a lot of the collections of artwork already. And based on the pictures, they create their own writing. So we have a lot of topics, right, about civil rights, human rights issues, immigration policies, students' own experience, and also there are different topics based on students' research. And they created a lot of very interesting books, right? They also write the bilingual books, books in English and Spanish, and books also in Chinese and English. So this is definitely a great website. Okay, move on to the next one. Okay, I think Diane, you're going to share something about classes in Atlanta, right? K12 classes.
Yes, sure. I just wanted to sort of illustrate in a hopefully a simple way how a virtual exchange project can work. And this example is between two seventh grade classes, one in Atlanta and one in Japan. So we begin, let me make sure I can, there we go. We begin with partner teachers. I mean, that is where all of this starts. So if you know a partner teacher in another country, maybe you should start by having a conversation and, collaborating and brainstorming about ideas of ways that your classes can interact. Maybe later in the program, we can talk a little bit about ways to find partner teachers. But basically, before your class even gets started, the first step is to communicate with your partner teacher. Prepare a project together. Think about what kind of technology you want to use, but don't let technology be a limiting factor because there are lots of tools out there that you can use. You can even use email if you need to. WhatsApp is an easy one, Google Hangouts, or any other platform, many of them that Dr. Zhao mentioned earlier. Also, another thing that you can kind of think about beforehand is to create your project rubrics. It's just good to have an idea of what you want the students to learn, what the outcomes are going to be before you even get started introducing the project to your students. And then also, just for parity, you want both classes to sort of receive the same type of grade or the same type of assessment, and to ensure that students from both classrooms have similar investment and buy-in with the activity. So that's where it all begins. And then this is just a simple project. You probably do some of these things anyway. If you're teaching, let's say you're teaching a foreign language and you're teaching, verbs about daily routines, you probably do this already, but adding the virtual exchange element allows you to get new input from an international class, from students speaking another language. So you can have your students create a digital photo book of their daily routines. All the students love to use their technology, their phones, to create digital media, right? And then the next step would be somehow, whatever technology you decide to use, you can exchange the photos between the two classes. And I think this is really fun for students just to see, what their peers in another country might show in their digital photo books, right? Their experiences, their daily routines might be very similar to students in Atlanta, or some things might be very different. So students can look at the photos and then brainstorm some questions that they have for their peers in the other country. And then this is another, technology, thing that you'll have to work out with your partner teacher. But think of a way to exchange some questions that the students have about each other. Now, this can be done through Flipgrid, right? You could make short videos with questions about the other classroom's daily routines, or you can create small groups and they can work on Zoom or some other virtual media. But anyway, the idea is that they have an opportunity to ask each other questions about their daily routines. They might have some reflections about how the conversation went, how the communication went with the class in the other country. Maybe not all of their communication worked effectively. Maybe they had some miscommunications. Maybe they had some funny stories to tell about the interaction with their classmates in the other country. But give them an opportunity to really share and elaborate on those communication experiences with each other and with you in your classroom. And then a very important part of virtual exchange is always to include some kind of reflection activity at the end. Really let the students, give them an opportunity to absorb what they've learned, to think about what their expectations were at the beginning and what they have learned, or what things might have changed, how their perspectives might have changed through this activity. And also it's good for you as a teacher to see those reflections and hear from the students how meaningful the activity was for them. So that is hopefully sort of a simple activity. So virtual exchange doesn't have to be, this, elaborate, complicated type of project. What we want to show to you today is that virtual exchange is kind of in line with probably things that you already do. The only extra work is really having a partner teacher and coordinating some of the logistics of sharing activities with another class. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Tolosa-Casadont.
Thank you, Diana. So what we have next in the next couple of slides is basically some examples of an exchange that we did. So as Diana said, we started a dual language program a few years ago in Athens, and about 3 years into the program, we thought about maybe creating some kind of virtual experience for the students to actually have the opportunity to communicate with people who speak the language they were learning as their native language. So we were lucky enough, just because we had some contacts in Uruguay, we were able to connect with a bilingual school. Like Diana said, the most important, or the first thing we needed to do was the buy-in. And so we presented the idea to the other school and the teachers, and they had a technology person who would support them. And we created the exchange, and so then we started thinking about what types of activities we could do with the students to help them practice their language skills and also get a peek and an insight into the other children's experiences in school, but also cultural experiences. So we started in what was our fall semester, which is towards the end of the school year in Uruguay. So we were, our students and their students were both in second grade at that point, and we started the exchange first by creating a few opportunities to meet as a class. So before we did the actual virtual tour of the school, we did some Google Hangout meetings in which the whole class from the US and the whole class from Uruguay were meeting together. And one of the takeaways from that first experience was for us to monitor all the sounds and who was speaking when, and turning off our microphones, and because there was a lot of feedback. All the students were very excited, and so everybody wanted to speak at the same time. And so we learned very quickly, how to set some of those expectations that Dr. Zhao was talking about, and helping the students learn how to do this interaction in a way that would allow everybody to say something and also be heard. So the students ahead of time, they would prepare questions for this conversation, and then we each child was assigned one of the questions, and then they would take turns asking and answering the questions. We did these exchanges via Google Hangout, and we did them in Spanish, only in Spanish and only in English, to make it less cognitively heavy on the students, and so they could actually concentrate on the communication part of things rather than the whole grammar and everything that might have been going on in their heads. And so from that, it evolved into, okay, one of the questions that the students had and something that they were very interested in was school life, right? And so we just started school. You guys are about to finish school and take your summer break. And, where are we? What do you guys do during the school day, etc. So we decided to ask our students to show a different part, to create videos of different parts of the school. And the students in Uruguay did the same thing. And so they took us, for example, to the gym, and there was a gym class going on. Then they took us out to a garden that they had, in which they would take stuff to actually cook in the school. They showed us their playground. And so our students did the same thing here. And so after they exchanged, we did something like what Diana said, which was we are watching these videos of their daily life and what happens in the school and what these places look like. And now that you have this visual, what questions do you have about their experiences based on this, right? And so a lot of wonderful questions came up, and the answers, we did them in several different ways. We did more Google Hangout, in which we asked specific questions about the tour, but then we also did some Flipgrid questions and some email questions. So Diana, if you want to show the whole slide is good. So talking about partner teachers, we didn't grade any of this. Our main goal, Dr. Zhao was talking about being true to your objectives. The objectives for these exchanges, what we really wanted was for the students to have the language experience and the cultural experience. We didn't want to grade this. We didn't want to, do anything with it, but just have the experience, talk to each other, have fun, and learn. So the partner teachers planned the project together, and they help the learners navigate all the technical stuff like creating, editing, and sending the videos. They scheduled the virtual follow-up conversation that we had. And then also, like we've all talked about, is that idea of debriefing, that idea of reflecting, digesting the experiences, asking the questions that they may not want to ask the other children, but they do want to know the answers to. And so what ended up happening was the children in both schools made the videos in their native language. So this helped as a model. So as a non-Spanish speaker, I'm hearing a native speaker tell me about his or her school. As a non-native English speaker, I'm hearing an English speaker talk about his or her school. And so that was helpful for them as a model for what they then do, as a project within their classroom and in their school, not part of the virtual exchange. And then when we had the interviews, when we had the Flipgrid and the emails, we did all of this in the language it was posed. So if your Uruguayan kids were asking a question in English, we answered in English. And if they asked in Spanish, we answered in Spanish, of course, always to the best of our ability, right? So that's one example of the exchange. And then with that same group of kids, which is the next slide, Diana, we did another exchange in which we, what we did was we got the list of all the names of the children here and there, and we just randomly matched them. And so then we said, okay, write an introductory letter to your friend. And I don't know how they did it in Uruguay, but in the US, the students actually wrote the letter by hand. And then with the support of some TAs that we had in the program from the University of Georgia, they were actually, these people would actually type up the letters and send them in an email format, but they also scanned the letter because some of the students would draw little smiley faces and, cutesy things that you couldn't, replicate in an email. And so we wanted to make sure that the other children would actually get the feel of receiving an actual letter, right? And so, so the students first wrote that introductory letter, but then the letters in the interest went in different directions, right? And so it was a very meaningful learning experience, language learning experience, because the students were writing about things that were important to them. And so, they would talk about their likes. Can you hear me? Because it says internet connection unstable. Are you guys hearing me okay? Okay. So it was super meaningful because they wrote about things they cared about. They asked each other questions that they really wanted to know about the other person. And then we helped them with the language. So if they wanted to ask a question they weren't sure how to word, and then they also, the other very interesting thing or important thing was that they learned how to structure a letter, right? How to address the letter, how to sign off, how to write your paragraphs, how to, connect things. And so I think that in itself was a very important experience for them to have, given that we are not writing letters anymore or too often, right? And I think I mentioned everything in there. Yeah, go ahead.
And I just want to say for just a second, it is 3:43. So we have a lot more slides to show, but I want to give everyone chances to ask their questions. So why don't we just do a couple more slides, and Dr. Zhao, you can tell me which ones you'd like to go through, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A.
Okay, I think we can just have 2 more slides here. So some just activities, some step-by-step advice. The first one is very important. Find your partners, right? Not anyone. Reliable, trustworthy, dedicated, communicative. So better to be someone. Because if you want to collaborate successfully, you have to work with someone who can depend on. And also, it's in different countries, in the different cultures, there are different issues about getting permission for the dialogues, for a lot of things, right? So make sure you get permission from your institute and also your collaborators institutions, right, to get approval, and need to know the purpose, because they also need to know the purpose and the content. And also voluntary participation, or whether it's required or voluntary participation. And also when working with children, you also need to get permission maybe from the parent. And also in terms of curriculum design, so as we mentioned already, objectives, and also try to fit in course schedule and assignments, and also try to include, right? It's better to be a mandatory part in their course, so you can make the work more, so all the students can better, can be more actively participate. And also you can also negotiate what you're going to do, the different topics, the questions, and make sure participants, right, feel safe and comfortable, not something kind of, they feel maybe it's too critical or maybe it's too sensitive or something, right? And also refer to the different solutions, not only for the GSU student, but I mean any students, right, who maybe have encounter some technology problems or access problems. The next one. Okay, and also confidentiality, right? Always make sure you're going to share something you're going to keep, right, within the groups, because they don't want to be identified sometimes, and also timing, right? So considering the different countries, they have different calendars, holidays, and time difference, how time consuming it is. And also set some deadlines for the initial posting or the dialogue or anything, right? And track deadlines and cultural language issues, right? So always facilitate in multiple groups and in different contexts, and make sure you can get language support and be aware of the different culture, religious and racial related issues and culture. And always be proactive to clarify any miscommunications to make sure your interactions will be successful. And sometimes you have to be sensitive about the topics or the questions you ask and for student discuss. If it's some sensitive topics, make sure you discuss early on. The next one, please. Okay, so the following few slides, I'm not going through it, just kind of give you some idea. There are different kind of resources you can access. It will give you a lot of information how you can also apply in your own classrooms, and including some workshops. Yes, GSU offer it, and also many others. If you want to learn more about what is virtual exchange, and also different ideas, projects, and also how you can strengthen the 21st, the different kind of skills, and forge friendship with international partners, help develop your student digital media literacy, right? So these are some great resources to learn from.
And Dr. Zhao, if I may interrupt, I will share these links with everyone and this PowerPoint with everyone after the presentation. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can move on to some questions now, and, yes, and you all can contact us if there's anything else that you want to know. So I do see a lot of questions about finding international partners, and I know that is a challenge. I see that Dr. Tolosa-Casadont recommended finding partner teachers that you trust, right? Because you are going to do a lot of things. You're going to work closely together. So it's good to start there. Go ahead, and would you like to add more to that?
Yeah, I would love to. So making sure my mic is on. So yes, the best way, for example, for us, we had contacts in Uruguay, and so we were able to do that, right? But if you think about your school, or think about your professors at the different universities, or the people, for example, I saw somebody's from Cobb County, Herman in Cobb County, he can probably help you connect with other places, right? Or whatever county you're in, the person who overseas world languages, they can find probably opportunities for us to for you to connect with. You might have colleagues who are from different countries who may know people, and so I think that is the best way that I know how to connect with people. And then also, once you establish that initial connection, making sure that you meet just the teachers to make sure that you're all interested in the same thing and that your goals are compatible. So then you're not going into this activity having different visions of what it's going to look like and how you're going to do it.
And I would like to just piggyback on that. If you belong to any, professional associations, there's often, an international, interest group or, subcommittee or subsector of the association. So reach out to those people. And I do like this other idea. Who had this idea about doing meet and greets to connect? And I think that is a wonderful idea. If you can find a school in another country that would like to partner with you, it might take a while to sort of establish a rapport. And but when you make those connections, now it's so easy to do it online that I think that's a great way to start. And just remember that some of these, it does take time, right? Relationship building takes time. So it might not be something that you can start, meet with a partner one week and start your project the next week. You might need to develop it over a few months before you're ready to launch. I see another question from Emily Sprinkle. What are common challenges you encounter when doing these kind of learning exchanges? Do you have any advice about how to avoid or overcome them? Would either of you like to take that question?
Yeah, I'd like to take this question, and because I've been doing this for many years already, and also I encountered different kind of challenges, right? So as I mentioned earlier, so maybe a topic could be sensitive, right? So kind of sometimes we feel hesitate. Another one is definitely language barriers. So, but technology now, the students, right? You can, a lot of students are using the Google Translator. So you can automatically kind of instantly translate a lot of information in different languages. Our classes try that. And also time difference, right? So it makes challenging to do the synchronous. So because you cannot at the same kind of time zone. So that could be a challenge. And then the holiday time, like for spring semester, right? I have to consider there are more spring holidays in some countries, especially in the Asian countries, right? We have very different schedule. The fall calendar can be very similar, but in the spring, because the winter holiday in February, January, February, and most of the conversations, the collaborative projects are done in March and April. So mostly in these 2 months. And also some technology platforms, right? So we can access most of the technology platforms, but some countries may have some limitations. You have to find a common ground. For instance, right, iCollege can be accessed in some countries, but not all. So we have to, the Agile blocks, and also Flipgrid is a great platform now. Almost all the countries can access to. So we're using it a lot more these days. You can share a lot of information using the Flipgrid besides the video. Some other things, the commitment, yes. So whether the teachers you're working with, they are dedicated to not just 1 or 2 weeks, because it needs some time, right? So at least 4 or 5 weeks. So you need to be dedicated and committed on both sides, and encourage students to active, maybe some incentives, right? Try to emphasize the benefits of this virtual exchange.
And Lou, do you have anything to add?
Just for us, the most challenging thing was settling the kids, when it was time to communicate with their friends from, the other country. So I guess it also depends on the age group that you're working with. The younger the student, the more structure you will need to have, especially when you're doing whole class communication and interaction. Is, in a lot of it will be organic as things are happening. You're making mental notes of, okay, next time we need to do this differently. But I think the students, especially for the younger ones, they were so excited to hear back from their friends, through receiving the letters, or when is our next Google Hangout with our friends, that the buy-in was there, and they were totally committed to this. And like Dr. Zhao said, also making sure that the connectivity is there, because we would have sometimes issues with drop calls, or we couldn't get to talk to each other. And so the younger the students, always having your plan B, C, and D. So if the technology is not working, what are we going to do instead, right? So it's not chaotic in your classroom.
I think that's a really good point. I think that when you're dealing with this kind of technology, you have to be flexible and adaptable, and think quickly if something doesn't work. Be able to pivot and do something else. But I think also, don't be afraid. I mean, some things are going to happen. Like somebody said, they want to avoid the pitfalls. Sometimes it is just trial and error, and don't be afraid to, give it a shot, because I think the rewards are, so huge for the students and for you, for your own professional development. I think you'll find it a very rewarding experience.
Okay, I see a question from Carrie here.
Okay.
So in subject other than foreign dual language, actually, I'm not in world language section. I'm teaching the social studies. So I just feel there's so much we can do with social studies. Students like community building. So the students taking video of their communities, their families, even their relatives, and something they're interested. Students are sharing about this, right? So this is part of social studies, and also multicultural education. So we have been doing recently the students' introduction. They are sharing their bedrooms, and they are sharing the museums they have been to, and also their school projects, the decorations on the wall. And then students raise, once they share about the decorations, the different kind of books they have in classroom, and students have come up with more questions. And also we have teachers who are doing science projects, like climate change, right? The weather, and a lot of environmental issues, right? So they are also having a lot of discussions, reading newspaper, the local newspaper, and video projects. So it can be done in many other disciplines.
And I'd like to add that, we're in a good position here in the US speaking English, because so many other students from other countries, they have been learning English for many years. So they sort of have an advantage already knowing another language, whereas sometimes students in the US might not be proficient enough in their second language to communicate, in a social studies class or something like that. So, but that doesn't mean to say that we should, I think we should also encourage our US students to learn a little bit about the language when they are interacting with students in another country.
Okay,
I think we are running out of time though. So maybe just did you want to say one other thing?
No, I just wanted to add very quickly that we, even though it was a dual language immersion program, and both schools were bilingual programs, we also did not just language exchange, but the Flipgrid experience that our students had were all driven by the curriculum. So whatever we were doing that week in math or in science or whatever, they would just leave little videos for each other and share something about their, their week or their day. And we would do 1 week in Spanish, both groups spoke Spanish, and then the next week both groups spoke English. And so that was helpful because it was, in addition to the language, dual language immersion programs or bilingual schools, is about the content in the other language, right? And so so these students were both learning sciences in both languages, or math in both languages. And so it was good practice for them to talk about things that they were learning, and explore that and see how they were working on things similarly and differently in both contexts.
Right, and also for my students, right, the students are coming actually from the different departments, and they are also talking about some educational issues, community issues, and some issues we all care about. And students from different countries, they share about, and then eventually what some commonalities and what we can learn from each other. So definitely can be applied in different areas.
So thank you both, Dr. Zhao and Dr. Tolosa-Casadont. We appreciate you sharing your time and your expertise with us. We learned so much about virtual exchange. If you don't mind putting your contact information in the chat, and I will also share the PowerPoint with everyone. Also, the video will go up on our YouTube channel probably by early next week, so you can look for it there. Thank you to the audience for attending this session. We hope you enjoyed it. Please get in touch with us if you want to discuss virtual exchange anymore. We at the Atlanta Global Studies Center, we hope to promote virtual exchange as a way to expand global education for all students from kindergarten through college. And let me think, also I'd like to thank the College of Education and Human Development for helping us organize this session. And again, a big thank you to our speakers today. Hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, and we hope to see you again at another event soon.